Good morning, good afternoon and good evening everybody. My name is Jacqueline Jane, JJ, and welcome to today's presentation, which is all about security culture. Last week at the KnowBe4 Annual User Conference in Orlando, I presented this very session and was rudely interrupted halfway through by an emergency alarm. First time for me after hundreds of presentations. Many attendees returned after it was declared a false alarm, and I received a lot of requests for the recording of the entire session from those who missed it. That was the second half that they missed, which was awesome. As promised, here it is. Now, before I continue, some context for those of you who have found this video by other means. I'm a security awareness advocate for a company called KnowBe4, who is the world's largest provider of new school security awareness training and simulated phishing platform that helps organisations manage the ongoing problem of social engineering. And our mission is to enable your employees to make smarter decisions every day. Naturally, like the video, subscribe, and please share far and wide. Without further ado, let's get into the presentation. I'd like to begin with a story. 6 years ago, I was working for another organisation and was tasked with training around 1,200 people on cybersecurity. I said, okay, no problem, I can do that. And not surprising, during that time, I became a KnowBe4 customer, which means I've been where you are if you're a practitioner for security awareness training. What I'm talking to you about today is security culture, the journey and the steps I followed without a background in IT. I've worked across different sectors, including higher education, travel, finance, technology, media, and the general corporate world. My background has been in various areas, including sales, marketing, communications, HR, and IT, with no specific focus on cybersecurity. However, a common thread throughout my entire career is communication and being a conduit between people and technology and people. As we know, we tell people, don't click on shit, but we actually don't tell them what shit not to click on. And therein lies the issue, and I'll talk about this shortly. Now, back to 6 years ago, I used my skills in project management, change management, learning and development, stakeholder management, business strategy, and being a trusted business partner to approach the task at hand of training these people on cyber. Let me explain what I mean. I started with a lot of research and said, all right, what's the best practice in security awareness training? At the time, back in 2017, surprise, surprise, guess who was leading the way? KnowBe4. So I took a deep dive into their platform and realized it wasn't going to need a lot of extra work from me. I didn't need to create any training, any content. Simulated phishing templates were already there, campaigns were ready, reporting was set up, and so much more, which meant I had found the perfect platform to underpin my overall project. So that was an easy decision. The hardest part was working out how to engage the whole organisation and get everyone on board, because I knew that without that support, it wasn't going to be very successful. So I created a project plan. Sounds very logical so far. The elements I covered included what resources we'd need, how much time we'd need for training, how would the simulated phishing templates work, how will I get everyone engaged, what messaging would work, what reporting we'll need, what legal and regulatory requirements are relevant, who needs to be involved in the project phase, who's going to look after things when it transfers to business as usual, and how does success look? How will I demonstrate ROI? I'm going to need to speak to key stakeholders across the organisation, and so much more. Now, why would I bother with all these elements, I hear you ask? Well, a lot of it comes down to experience as it relates to change management principles and people. I know that if not done properly, people will not want to do training. They'll complain that they don't have time for it. They've got too many other things they need to focus on. Cybersecurity is IT's responsibility, not theirs, all of which ensures my intent to enable everyone to make better decisions every day when it comes to security would fail. So with that knowledge, and after going through all the steps, I presented a compelling argument to the executive team that included, here's what we're going to do, here's why it's important, here are the critical elements we need to consider, here's what you told me, here's what I need from you, which is the agreement and support to roll out the project with your blessing. If you fail to get the agreement and support from the top, there's a high chance you will face challenges with your security awareness programs And of course, the creation of a security culture is in jeopardy because it's completely off the cards. I've heard many challenges after talking to hundreds of IT professionals over my last 4 years here at KnowBe4, and there's a common thread of challenges which I'll be sharing with you in a moment. Perhaps one of the most important things to understand is security culture is about the hearts and minds of people, and I'm going to talk to you about creating a security culture in your organisation beyond the ABCs, which is awareness, behaviour and culture. The common challenges you may have and the levers that you can pull to flip those challenges around. And as I'm sure you already understand these basic elements, when we think about awareness, it's training and simulated phishing activities. We heard from Stu, our CEO, during the conference, whether you're doing that every month, every week or every quarter, you need to be doing it ongoing, and it needs to be something that actually lands and makes sense with people. Then after time, we're starting to see behaviour shift, which is always great. Then there's culture. Something we hear a lot at this point is, how do I actually do this? All of our customers have seen the graph that shows how risk is reduced and behaviours change over 12 months, with 34% of untrained people clicking on a simulated phishing email, which drops to around 17% after 3 months of training and more simulations. And after 12 months, the percent drops to around 5% as a result of ongoing education and, of course, that opportunity to apply that new knowledge with simulated phishing campaigns. And it really does work. I ran the program for 2 years with a security culture beginning to form at the end of that first year, and there were levers I was pulling to make sure the entire organisation was on board to make that happen. And everybody knew their responsibility when it came to cybersecurity. We know that you already have a security culture, whether you like it or not. You have one. However, is it the one you actually want? As Perry Carpenter has so rightly stated, security culture is the ideas, customs and social behaviours of an organisation that influences its security. You want people to make the best decisions when you're not watching. Let's go to some things that we do know about. You should all be familiar with the security culture model. If not, there'll be links in the description, so please check that out. So the security culture model is where we say, all right, well, where would I like to be? You don't need to be in level 1, level 2, level 3 or level 4, but what I will tell you is the only way to get to level 5 is to actually go through those first 4. So the challenge is, how do I actually do that? It's not possible to create a security culture overnight. If you only just started your program or you've been doing it for 2 or 3 years and you're not quite sure where to go next as it relates to security culture, I'll be able to help you. So we understand that security culture maturity model is one thing that gives us an idea of how we're going to get there. We also understand the culture maturity indicators. This is where we have that roadmap of how we're going to get there, and it gives us a starting point to say, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to measure it, and this is our way forward with the program. Some of that's quite interesting when we consider the KnowBe4 vision for security awareness, which starts with the human layer and moves to active user participation in security posture. That's active user participation, which implies that people actually need to do something, take action. You can't just turn up and expect to go to another level here and there and end up in compliance if you haven't got that active user participation, which is actually agreement, that's engagement, that's getting people on board, those hearts and minds of people, everyone on the same page, whatever language you'd like to use for that. And what we're finding is if you miss that step, you get to a point where people stop and say, I don't want to do the training. Why am I doing this? I don't have time. This is not my job. This is IT's job. And you're thinking to yourself, hold on a minute. We've got the greatest training. We've got all these amazing simulated social engineering and phishing templates, but you're getting all this pushback and you don't understand why. And it really is because you haven't achieved the active user participation reasons for getting into a security awareness program. So let's consider for a moment the reason why you have a security awareness training program to start with. There's different reasons as to why these things do begin. It can come down to some common things which I've grouped together over the years. Could be a directive from the board or the CIO, the CISO, the CISO, depending on where you're living. to get everyone upskilled in cyber. It could be a need for people to stop engaging with phishing emails. It could be regulatory or compliance reasons to train people in cybersecurity. The result of a near miss or data breach or cyber incident. Too many organisations are being hit with cyber attacks in your industry or sector, and you're rightly so concerned with it happening to you. It could even be an existing cybersecurity framework such as NIST or the Essential 8 suggesting that you need to train your people. And that's all the guidance you really get. Because one reason we don't hear is we need to create a security culture. Hopefully that will come in time. But until then, please feel free to leave a comment if your reasons to start your security awareness program is very different to these, or if any of those do resonate with the reasons why you started your program. Now, once a request comes in, usually the next step for people is to say, okay, well, let's find someone to do the training or invest in a security awareness training platform, and we'll just kick it off and make it happen, get approval to purchase, off it goes. Then comes the challenges, roadblocks, and pushback with the program. Remember, our current state of awareness element, we've got the behaviour element, and now we're at the culture point. The biggest question that we get is, how do you create a security culture? One question I have for the IT professionals watching right now is, have you ever asked someone in HR to configure your firewall? Or sales? Have you asked anyone in sales to configure your firewall? I'd say not, because most people in HR or sales won't be able to do that because they're not skilled in that area. That's why you've never asked them. So on this point, let's consider your skill set as an IT professional, and I do say this with absolute respect to you. Do you have all the skills required to embark on that creation of a security culture that relies on a certain set of skills that isn't necessarily something in your kit bag, such as change management, organisational change, etc. Now, there will be some of you who do have these skills, which is great. For everyone else, this means that to get the required active user participation in security posture, you will need to reach out to others in your organisation and collaborate with them. The challenge then is, how do you have a conversation with these people in your organisation, how they could help you? As my colleague Anna Collard stated in her presentation at KB4CON this year, she was talking about maybe reaching out to someone else in the organisation who has another similar program in place that you could leverage, something in relation to culture change. In Australia, where I'm from, that sits with HR, with programs such as work health and safety or mental health programs, or something where the entire organisation has a role to play. Everyone understands they have a responsibility to be safe at work, but someone usually owns that. And then it's responsible to make sure everyone's involved with the program and it's a safe place to work. It's the same for cybersecurity. Everyone has a responsibility for it, and it should be owned by IT. You are the subject matter experts in this space. That's your skill, that's your field of expertise, but you're probably not going to want to create a whole project plan, communication plan, engagement and gamification program and all the things involved because they're not necessarily within your job description skill set, or you just don't have the time to do them. Okay, let's look at the common challenges I've heard over the years related to security awareness programs. Here we go. It might be pushback from others in your organisation. Why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. Or cybersecurity's IT's job, not mine. I'm in marketing, I'm in finance, this is silly. Users not understanding the importance of cybersecurity. This is a very common one. I hear it a lot, and it goes back to what I said earlier. When we keep telling people don't click on shit, yet we don't tell them what shit not to click on. Also, you might get complaints about having no time to do the training. We have so much other training to do. We heard during the conference that many of our customers are using our KnowBe4 mobile app on the weekends to complete their training in their own time. Whilst this might surprise some of you, it doesn't surprise me at all. People will do what they choose to do, knowing it's important in the time that suits them. If you're in a doctor's rooms waiting, or at the hairdresser's or somewhere, and you think, oh, I've got that training to do, I'll just get it done now. It's a lot easier to do that, fill your time with something. Some people listen to podcasts and look at other things on social media. It's another activity that's available to do. You could also get questions such as, why are you trying to entrap me with these phishing templates? Interesting one, that one, which we'll talk about. And the desire to move from awareness, training and simulations to observable behaviour change that leads to the creation of a security culture, like where people who might find a USB on the car park that says payroll 2023 on it, as much as they want to go and plug that in to find out what everyone's being paid, they'll actually take it to the cyber team and let them know. Because really, who doesn't want to find that stuff out? But having that culture of security, you just know it's not worth the risk. You need to hand that in. And that's what you want to happen. You want people to lock their devices when they step away, do the right thing at home, especially when they're working remotely. And as a side note, when I was traveling to the US and back to Australia, the number of laptops left unlocked in the airport lounges was astounding. These usually are executives or business people leaving their open, unsecured laptops on a table for anyone to access for quite a considerable amount of time. It was quite amazing. Now for the big question. How do we take our users from where they are now to where they need to be? Now here are those challenges I shared before, and now we're going to talk about what levers you can pull to flip them around, starting with pushback from others in your organisation, and you want to move from that to everyone in your organisation supporting your program. Now this involves looking at stakeholder engagement, actually talking with the leaders in your organisation, and I'll say this again, if this is not your skill set or you're not comfortable in doing it, if it's not your job, your task is to reach out to someone else in your organisation. That could be in operations or in HR. Talk to people in communications, have a chat, find out who looks after that culture aspect of where everybody needs to do something in your organisation. When you find that out, then you can gather some information from these people. Then there's ongoing relevant and engaging awareness training and applying that learning with simulated phishing exercises, which hopefully you're already doing. Over time, that changes that behaviour of your users. Now remember, that does take time. But if you haven't communicated this to your users so that they are aware the training is a non-negotiable and the reason why it's so important, the reason why cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, they will push back. Over time, changing the behaviour of all our users to embed this awareness and make better decisions is the ultimate goal. Over time, this will change the behaviour of our users and embed this awareness so they do make better decisions every day online. The ultimate goal is the creation of a security culture where this awareness and behaviour is embedded into every single thing that you do. Now here are two similar challenges for the next one, which is moving from cybersecurity as IT's job, not mine, to users understanding that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. Plus, moving from users not understanding the importance of cybersecurity to users who do understand the importance of cybersecurity. This involves some levers of communication and engagement specific to your organisation and sector, potentially talking about the threats that are actually happening at the moment, the cyber threat landscape. One of the hardest things here is to bring it down without talking too much technology. Don't just say ransomware. Give some examples and more detail so that when you are communicating, that level of knowledge increases, which in turn will increase that engagement from others in your organisation to know the importance. Also painting a picture of the importance of everyone's role and responsibility when it comes to cybersecurity and never assuming that anyone knows what you're talking about. Drop the jargon, acronyms and buzzwords. This is really important to make sure your message actually lands, because when you don't understand what you're hearing, you'll disengage. If you mention VPN and MFA without clear non-technical descriptions, it probably won't end too well. Using analogies that aren't cyber related to get your message across really works. I use the analogy of learning to drive a car a lot. And here's how you can use it. Firstly, you introduce the cyber aspect. So you tell people, most people hand their kids very powerful connected smart devices with little or no rules or even understanding of the potential dangers. The fact is that adults are making the same mistakes their kids are making online these days. Now, here in Australia, back to the driving analogy, you can sit for your learner's permit when you're 16 years old. What we don't do is then hand the keys to our car to those kids that have just got their learner's permit and say, drive safely, or don't click on shit. There's the analogy. Now, there's a theory test that you have to go through here to prepare for and then pass to get your learner's permit. Then you have to spend a lot of time with a licensed driver. The first time you sit in the car, you're absolutely ready to drive and everything runs smoothly, doesn't it? No bunny hops. You know all the places in the car, all the things you need, everywhere you're going, all the safety things, the road rules, and you drive confidently. Well, that's not the case, as we all know. You're probably sweating, freaking out completely, utterly overwhelmed. I mean, just think back to when you learned to drive. I'm sure you can relate to these things. However, after driving for a few years, things become a lot easier. You're familiar with everything and you start to do things a little bit automatically. After a few years of driving, things become so much second nature that, have you ever driven from point A to point B sober and thought to yourself, how did I get here? I didn't break any rules, I didn't do anything wrong, the car's in one shape, everything's okay. How's that possible? Becomes second nature. Now think back to cybersecurity. It's the same principle. You can't expect people to know all the red flags when it comes to emails, all the social engineering techniques, the phishing family, phishing, smishing, the QR code phishing, all of those elements. You can't expect them to understand that by just telling them. It's going to take them time to understand it, get the knowledge in, be able to apply that learning. Oh yes, now it makes sense. And that's what we would like to happen when it comes to cybersecurity, is eventually people know second nature. Do not walk away from your laptop unattended without locking it. Make sure that, oh yes, this could actually be a red flag. I need to pay attention to this particular email. And you want them to do this without thinking. Another useful analogy is for aligning work health safety practices with cybersecurity, where everyone has a role to play to stay safe online, protect the organisation from threats, report everything, and keep the entire place safe. Okay, the next challenge is moving from complaints about having no time to do training to users completing their training because they understand why they're doing it. And moving from questions about why are you trying to entrap me with these phishing templates to users understanding why you're using simulated phishing emails. These elements require support from the top. That's your upper management, whatever that looks like for you, to make sure they agree and support your program, the training requirements for all your users, whether that be 10 minutes a month for training and the support to roll out monthly simulated phishing templates with the intent to check that learning progress of users. The whole point is not to entrap them. Tell your users this. Educate them, let them know why you're doing it. And of course, that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. That also comes from support from the top, as it sends a very clear message to your users that this has to be taken seriously. Everyone is expected to participate, and it is a non-negotiable part of your role at the organisation. The second element here is to provide the WIFM, the what's in it for me. You may have heard this term before. As humans, this is a very important part of getting us to actually choose to do something. You don't want to force people. You want people to understand what they're doing. And as humans, we need to know what's in it for me. And that is with everything in life. Just think about it for a minute. Even when you're training a new dog, learning something new, you'll put the time in and make the effort if you think it's important to you. And that's what we want for cyber. We want our users to choose to complete their training because they understand and accept that to do their part, they have to understand all of these different things in cyber. They have a level of responsibility in the organisation, so they need to complete the training and acknowledge those simulated phishing templates, report them, report anything else suspicious. Plus, by doing this over time, their behaviours will naturally change and you're on the way to that creation of a security culture. My last example today is the challenge of the desire to move from awareness, training and simulations to observable behaviour change that leads to a creation of security culture. And often you're just not too sure what steps to take to get there. Hopefully by now you've got a few from today's session. So this is the stage where you may have been running your program for maybe 6 months, 12 months, or even more. Training is being completed for the most part. Users are reporting that phishing simulations, and you're still struggling with, okay, what can you do? What levers can you pull? What strategies are in place to take you to that next part? Now, this element will benefit from all of the previous steps that we've already spoken about, that stakeholder engagement, communication and engagement, support from the top, that what's in it for me, plus revisit the intent of your program if it's already existing. Why are you actually doing this? And have you communicated that? Introduce some lunch and learn sessions, which surprisingly are some sessions you do at lunchtime that people can learn. Make it interesting for them. Something about keeping your family safe online, or a session for parents and caregivers. I can tell you now, you will get great support from something like this. A cybersecurity champions or advocates or safety officers program will also be something to consider. Introducing gamification or a rewards program aligned with your organisation. Maybe increasing the type of communication or changing it, adding in newsletters or having an intranet page where you can communicate to people. There's many things that you can do for pulling the levers for success for your security awareness programs. Let's recap as we refer back to the ABCs. Awareness. This is the knowledge, training and simulated phishing activities. Behaviour. Ongoing awareness, embedding new behaviours, and of course culture. How do we create a culture? It starts with active user participation in security posture, with the ultimate goal, which is having the creation of a security culture where this awareness and behaviours are embedded into everything that you do. These certainly aren't all the challenges that you could face. However, I'd be more than happy to hear from you which specific challenges you're facing that might be different. So ensure you leave a comment for future videos and I'll definitely respond to you. And this is the same for general levers to pull to flip those challenges over for you. If there's something you'd like to hear more about or something new you might have heard, please feel free to let me know by leaving a comment. Now, one more thing. The creation of a security culture does take time, and if you've made it this far, thank you so much. I appreciate all of your time today. And a special thank you for anyone who was interrupted at KB4CON23. Thank you for attending live at the conference, and thank you for watching this recording today. If there are any topics that you would like me to cover in the future, leave me a comment. Happy to look at them. I've added some useful links to the description of this video as well, so make sure you check them out too. Until next time, I'm Jacqueline Jane. Stay safe online and don't click on shit. Bye for now.